170 million users of TikTok in the US alone, and the Senate just passed a bill that brings TikTok one step closer to being banned in the US. On this channel, we talk about the world around us, how we can understand it, interpret it, and change our own lives based off what we see and what we understand to be true. Every decision you make brings you closer to who you want to be or further away. And yes, that means that every decision you make matters. The decision that the US government just made to ban TikTok, or at least bring it one step closer to being banned, is a life-changing decision for all of us, whether or not you realize the gravity of the situation or have ever even used the TikTok app. Now, many of you may understand TikTok is an app where people go and dance on it or share videos about their lives, and that it's all fairly benign. Now, the main reason that TikTok is up for discussion at such a high level is the reality that the company that owns TikTok, ByteDance, is a China-based company that has been accused of selling information about the users that use the app. There has been different stories that have come out that show that people's licenses are being shared and that people's identities are potentially being stolen or taken from them through the app and what they're sharing on the app. Now, how does TikTok get access to that type of information? I won't go into it, and I won't really have any true opinion on this, but I want you to understand where we sit with what's going on and what precedent this would create within the legislation system. Now, the Senate passed the bill 365 to 65 or 362 to 65, making it a bipartisan bill that has just been placed on the Senate floor. So the House of Representatives was the first line of defense to pass this bill. They passed it, and now it is going to go to the Senate. And President Biden has gone on record to say that he will sign the bill should it ever get to his desk. Now, what will happen if this does go through? Well, TikTok won't be banned the second the ink dries. ByteDance will have 6 months to sell TikTok to a non-China based company so that the app can continue to have its presence in the US. If ByteDance does not follow through and sell TikTok, they will no longer be allowed to market to the US. Now, TikTok is worth tens of billions of dollars, so selling TikTok within a few months is not a great deal of time, and usually these types of sales take a few years to finalize, and ByteDance may not bite at this reality and will most likely sue the US government for making this decision, and TikTok will, for a time, be in this litigation battle. So the end of TikTok is not going to be tomorrow, but it might be in the future, and the precedent that it will set will change how we all interact with the internet and the power that the government has and the willingness to which it yields that power. Now, if you consider that, well, the US is doing it from a good point of just trying to protect its citizens, there's been many times where the US has tried to protect certain citizens while not protecting others throughout history. And this seems like a last-ditch effort to continue to control the narrative of what is being told. TikTok, just like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all the other platforms where we can interact with one another, is a place where many of us get the information about the world. There has been many issues with all of these apps over these past 20 years, but not at any point has the government fully stepped in and taken such control over what is happening. Meta, which is the parent group of Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, had to come out in 2018 with this brand new design of the company because of the same issues of selling user information that came out of the Cambridge Alliance fiasco. And what we are seeing right now is another version of this, is the content of the users is being sold and more so the private information of these users. And that is basically what Web 2 is it is a read-write web version of the internet versus the read version of the internet that was first created and existed from the early 90s to the early 2000s, where people could interact with other people only through the information that already existed. News reports, emails, just a transfer of information that can be read and that can not be personally created. So that was Web 1. It was the first introduction of the internet at the level that it does exist today, but not at the intimate connection that many of us currently have with it. Now, Web 2 started around 2010 when YouTube and Facebook and Instagram really decided and were able to take off, and people got to contribute to the content that exists on the web. But since it is a read-write web, which is considered Web 2, we do not own any of the content, not truly, that we post on these platforms. You do not own the videos that you post on TikTok or YouTube or Facebook or any of the other content or pictures that you post. The owners of this content is the parent company that the content is posted on. So that seems to all be crumbling right now, and the different ways that we interacted with one another seems to be coming to an end, and it might be an even bigger end if the government decides to step in. So what are we to do when we are seeing Web 2 crumble at our very feet? It asks a lot of questions. Could this happen to the other platforms that we have come to know and love and use every single day, many times a day? Could all of these apps be removed? And what would happen if it does? Most of our attention goes to these apps and is shared through the entire world. Various pieces of information that 30 years ago you would never get access to. Now that goes to advertisements, and it also goes to news and live streams, into war zones, into what is actually happening in this world. So how are we going to deal with this if the government steps in and says you can no longer use this certain platform, and we're doing this to protect you? It sounds like other forms of governmental control that we have heard. But you might be saying, well, the government controls a lot of what we do anyway. There's certain laws that exist. There is certain things that you have to do. You have to have insurance, or you have to pay taxes, or you probably need a job so that you can afford your life. You need to live in certain ways to be obedient to the rules that the government has created. But we have also, in these past 20 years, seen a shift in how much the government can control. Now, banking, how we travel, how we interact with our grocery stores, how we interact with our environment has shifted because of the internet, where we can reduce how much time we spend in certain places and choose to spend our time in other ways. So how are we going to continue to live if the government is telling us how we can or cannot spend our time? Many people who use TikTok use it as a form of entertainment, and for many else, it is also a form of income or a form of being informed. So how are we going to survive with the government telling us what we can and cannot interact with anymore? And what precedent is going to be set? Will YouTube be next? Will Facebook be next? And many of these platforms have had their own issues with user information being sold. Google has had their own issues. Facebook has had many issues, and even stores have had these issues. Target had this problem. And is our information as safe as we think it is? And when we use these platforms, are we just opening ourselves up and accepting that this is just a risk that we're willing to take because we live in a world that is so focused on entertainment and sharing at the wider range? So can we shift into this new world, and can we do it effectively? And does the promises of Web 3 guarantee us a shift for the better? Web2 seems to be falling apart before our very eyes. Google has many issues of stealing content from creators through Google Books. There was a really great documentary on it before. I can no longer find it. And Facebook has had these issues too, which is why they rebranded to being called Meta, which is why Meta is the big name that people are hearing and aren't necessarily sure what it is. It is the parent company of Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and I believe a few other platforms that they currently own. Snapchat as well. So will these platforms no longer be accessible if this reach continues? How far will it go? And what does it mean for us? Will Web3 come and be the savior of this reality? Because if Facebook and YouTube are no longer accessible, people will still need a way to consume content and to create it. And if Web3, which is a read, write, own version of the web, promises us that not only will we be able to create content, we'll be able to own it and be able to be the rightful owners, will this fix our problem? And will it not matter if TikTok gets taken because something else will exist that all of us will jump on next? So is this just the natural order of how things fall apart? Is this the government's last ditch attempt to take back this information? Or is this just the reality that we're going to live in? It feels very 1984 to have such an overreach, what it may seem like going on right now. Web3 has a lot of promises of saying that privacy will actually mean something in the future within the internet, because right now it seems like it doesn't. And we have already seen the decentralization of what exists. Uber has removed cab drivers. Airbnb has removed hotel chains from being the main point of contact. Traveling agencies have been replaced with places like Expedia, so you can book your own travel. You don't have to go through a specific person. So we have already seen the decentralization happening. Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, is stepping in to replace normal banking and to cut out the middleman that is making a lot of money when it comes to international exchange of money. So we are seeing this shift in the world, and this being the big news right now could be an even bigger shift into this new reality. So how are you supposed to feel about all of this that's going on? It's hard to know. We are living in a time that is constantly shifting, and it feels like tension has increased across the world in so many different ways. People fighting with one another, people blaming one another, and it feels like we are reaching a boiling point that is going to lead to a brand new revolution of change. I don't know where we go from here. I am interested to see where the bill goes, how far it goes, and how much resistance the government is going to face with these tactics that they're currently using. Web3 is on its way. It's here. Virtual reality is coming. This new platform where we will get to own the things that we create is on its way. And will we see an end to how much power the government gets to have because of all these new systems that are created? Maybe. And this journey has just begun. Social media and the way we understand it today will be completely different in the next 10 years. It will be a different interaction that we have and a different sense of ownership. Many people already feel like social media has had its heyday and is on the way out. Platforms that revolutionized how we understand ourselves in the context of the world have changed. Netflix was one of the biggest platforms in the entire world and is currently seeing a crumble of its own, which I will talk about in an upcoming video about how Netflix and Blockbuster are seeing the same path. Blockbuster was replaced by Netflix, and Netflix seems to be on the same trajectory of its predecessor. How are these companies supposed to shift and readjust with these changing expectations and timelines and experiences that people are expecting to have? What's going to happen next? We will see. Let me know what you think about what's going on with TikTok, what you think is going to happen next. Do you use TikTok? Do you like TikTok? Do you see it as this incredibly controversial platform that it has seemed to have become? Or do you like the dancing? Let me know what you think. We'll connect soon about Netflix, Web3, crypto, NFTs, and how we can navigate this world with this information. How can we become better people for ourselves and create the life that we've always wanted? The world is yours. Go enjoy it. I'll see you soon.